The late afternoon sun was sinking behind the dunes, leaving streaks of copper and rose across the desert sky, when Kareem stepped outside his humble stone house at the edge of the oasis. The palms swayed lightly in the breeze, whispering secrets only the desert wind understood. Kareem rubbed his hands together, brushing off sand from hours of tending the small date grove his father had once planted. It was a quiet life, simple, predictable and lonely, but it was his sanctuary. Just as Kareem bent to gather a basket of ripe dates, a strange rumbling reached his ears. Not thunder. Not shifting dunes. Something heavier, more alive. Kareem straightened, shading his eyes. At first he thought his imagination was crafting shadows out of heat waves, but no. There, moving along the shimmering horizon, was a caravan. A large one. Camels, horses, riders, and at its center, a palanquin draped with white silk that glimmered under the fading sun. Kareem's heart thudded. Visitors almost never came to this remote oasis, only weary travelers seeking water or merchants passing through with hurried steps. But this was different. A noble procession, too purposeful to be lost, too grand to be accidental. He stepped forward cautiously, the sand shifting under his feet. As the caravan approached, the lead rider raised a hand, signaling for the procession to halt. Dust swirled around them like golden fog. "Peace upon you," the rider said, dismounting with fluid grace. His cloak was indigo, his boots fine leather, his demeanor unmistakably official. He bowed slightly. "Are you Kareem bin Hadi?" Kareem swallowed, surprised. "I am. We carry a request from Sheikh Rashid al-Qadir." Kareem's eyes widened. The Sheikh Rashid al-Qadir, ruler of Kafila city, protector of the trade routes, a man spoken of across deserts and borders. Kareem had never met him but knew the legends. Wise, diplomatic, powerful, revered. An elder whose counsel shaped tribes and whose voice settled wars. Why would the Sheikh send for me?" Kareem asked, his voice soft, almost hesitant. The rider smiled gently. "Your father once saved the Sheikh's son from a sandstorm many years ago. The Sheikh has never forgotten the kindness. Today he seeks only a night's rest in a place untouched by politics and noise. A quiet place." He gestured around. "This is such a place." Kareem felt warmth bloom in his chest, pride for his father and a nervous flutter he couldn't quite explain. He bowed deeply. "Your Sheikh is welcome here. My home is small, but my hospitality is sincere." At that moment, the silk curtains of the palanquin parted. Out stepped a man who seemed carved from the desert itself, weathered yet regal, aged yet strong. Sheikh Rashid's beard was white, trimmed neatly. His robes were simple for a leader of such stature, but elegance lingered in every fold. His complexion bore the sun's kiss, and his amber eyes, they held the weight of years, of stories, of burdens. But when those eyes met Kareem's, something softened instantly. "Peace be upon you, young Kareem," the Sheikh said, his voice low, warm, steady, like a distant drumbeat. "And upon you, honored Sheikh," Kareem replied, bowing slightly. Rashid's gaze drifted around the small oasis, at the palms, the stone walls, the humble date grove, as though he were searching for something only his heart understood. Then he exhaled slowly, a breath that carried exhaustion far beyond physical travel. "I thank you for accepting me into your home," Rashid said. "It is my honor," Kareem answered truthfully. The Sheikh leaned slightly on his staff, and Kareem stepped forward instinctively to support him. Rashid accepted the arm with a small, grateful smile, and together they walked toward the house. The guards remained outside, setting camp beneath the palms at Rashid's quiet instruction. Inside, Kareem lit a lantern, filling the room with warm, golden light. The house was modest. Woven rugs, a low wooden table, shelves of books and hand-carved trinkets. It was simple, perhaps even plain to noble eyes, but Rashid looked around as though he found comfort in every corner. "You live peacefully," Rashid murmured, lowering himself onto a soft cushion. Kareem nodded. "Peacefully, yes. Quietly too. The world rarely finds its way here." The Sheikh gave him a knowing look. "Sometimes the world must be escaped." Kareem met his gaze a moment longer than he meant to. Something in the Sheikh's eyes, tiredness, longing, a hidden ache, drew him in, tugging at his heart in a way he could not explain. "Can I bring you water, Sheikh?" Kareem asked softly. Rashid chuckled. "Already you care for me like family. But yes, thank you." Kareem fetched a cool jug of water from the clay vessel he kept by the shaded wall. When he returned, Rashid's eyes softened again, following his movements with an attention Kareem felt like warmth on his skin. Rashid drank slowly, each sip easing something in him. "You are very young," Rashid observed thoughtfully. And yet there is steadiness in you. Kareem felt heat rise in his cheeks. Life has demanded it. Rashid smiled gently. Life has demanded much from me too. But age does not always bring peace. Sometimes it only brings weight. He shifted slightly on the cushion as though settling his bones more comfortably. Then he murmured, I only wanted a little rest, but when I turned over in the palanquin earlier, I felt something change inside me. A whisper that called me here, not just for sleep but for stillness. Kareem blinked, not sure he understood. I hope my home gives you that. Rashid looked at him, truly looked, and for the briefest moment, the air between them felt charged with something unspoken, almost delicate. It already does, Rashid said quietly. Kareem felt his pulse flutter. The desert wind hummed outside. The lantern flickered. And in that small, quiet house far from the noise of the world, two lives, one young, one aged, took their first delicate step toward a bond neither could have foreseen. Everything had indeed begun to change. The evening deepened slowly as if the desert itself did not wish to rush the night. Stars bloomed one by one across the velvet sky outside Kareem's window. The guards, already weary from travel, settled themselves under the palms, their soft murmurs fading into the rustle of leaves. Inside the small house, the warm glow of a single lantern cast trembling shadows across the walls. Kareem moved quietly around the room, placing cushions near the bed, adjusting a pot of simmering herbs so that the soothing scent drifted through the air. He wasn't sure why he felt compelled to make everything perfect, only that he wanted the Sheikh to feel safe, cared for, unburdened. Rashid watched him from the low bed, propped slightly against the wooden headboard. His golden brown eyes followed every movement with gentle attention. When Kareem turned back to him, he felt heat rise in his chest, flustered by the intensity of the elder's gaze. You have a peaceful home, Rashid said softly. It welcomes me more warmly than many palaces. Kareem smiled shyly. I'm glad you find comfort here. The Sheikh shifted, testing how his back rested against the headboard. Though he moved slowly, there was dignity in every motion, a quiet authority that filled the room. Still, beneath the composed exterior, Kareem sensed the exhaustion that clung to him, a tiredness of the spirit more than the body. You may sit, Rashid said gently, tapping the space beside the bed. Kareem hesitated only a moment before settling on the edge of the cushion. He held the poetry book he'd been reading earlier, unsure whether to open it or not. Do you read often? Rashid asked, noticing the book. Every night, Kareem admitted. It keeps me company. Rashid smiled faintly. Loneliness is loud even in quiet places. Kareem's fingers tightened slightly on the edges of the book. Are you lonely, Sheikh? Rashid's eyes softened. Too many years to count. A moment of silence followed, filled only by the whisper of the desert breeze outside. Kareem felt something stir in his chest, an ache, a sympathy, something tender he hadn't expected to feel toward a man so powerful, so distant from his own life. Rashid lowered himself more comfortably on his side, facing Kareem. As he adjusted his position, the lantern light brushed across his profile, the curve of his cheek, the silver threads in his beard, the faint lines near his eyes that told stories of wisdom and loss. When I turned over in my palanquin earlier today, Rashid said slowly, I felt a strange shift inside me. A moment so slight I almost ignored it. Kareem listened, drawn in. A whisper, Rashid continued. Something telling me that the rest I sought would not come from pillows or blankets. Then from what? Kareem asked quietly. Rashid looked at him with an expression that reached deeper than words. From the presence of another heart. A sincere one. Kareem's breath caught. He hadn't expected such vulnerability. You speak as if you have known me longer than a few hours, Kareem murmured. I feel as if I have, Rashid said. The admission lingered in the air, warm and unsettling in a gentle way. Kareem looked down at his hands, unsure how to hold the weight of that feeling. Rashid reached out, fingers brushing Kareem's wrist in a hesitant, respectful gesture. Kareem did not pull away. The Sheikh's thumb stroked lightly across the skin there, slow and thoughtful. The touch was soft, not authoritative, not claiming, just human. Just needing connection. You are kind, Rashid said, voice low. And kindness is something I have grown unaccustomed to receiving without motive. Kareem raised his head, meeting Rashid's gaze fully. I don't want anything from you. I only want you to rest. Rashid exhaled in a way that told Kareem those words meant more than he realized. That is precisely why your presence calms me. Carefully, Rashid lifted Kareem's hand, still cradling it as though it were something delicate. Kareem felt his pulse quicken, but he did not look away. May I? Rashid asked, voice barely above a whisper. Kareem nodded. The Sheikh brought Kareem's hand to his lips and pressed a gentle kiss to the knuckles. Soft, warm, reverent. Kareem's breath shuddered. The kiss was not romantic in the way stories told it. It was dignified, tender, an expression of gratitude, of emotion too subtle for words. Kareem felt something inside him loosen, melt, open. Forgive me, Rashid murmured against Kareem's hand. Perhaps my heart is more tired than my body. Kareem swallowed. You don't have to apologize. Rashid released his hand slowly as if afraid to break the moment too quickly. Kareem placed his palm gently atop Rashid's where it rested on the sheet, a silent message of comfort, acceptance. Outside the night grew cooler. The lantern flickered, casting soft gold across Rashid's features. The older man studied Kareem again, this time with a look that was unmistakably tender. You are very gentle, he said. And you are very weary, Kareem responded softly. Rashid chuckled, a low warm sound. It seems you see through me too easily. Kareem lowered his gaze, smiling. Perhaps because you allow me to. Rashid lifted his hand, slowly, carefully, and brushed his fingers along Kareem's cheek. The touch was warm and steady. Kareem leaned into it without thinking, his eyes fluttering closed for a brief moment he wished would never end. May I tell you something honest? Rashid whispered. Yes, Kareem breathed. In all my years, Rashid said, very few faces have brought me peace the way yours does. Kareem's heart thrummed painfully, beautifully. I don't understand why. You don't have to, Rashid murmured. Some things are felt before they are understood. Their eyes met, an old man with centuries of responsibility in his gaze, and a young man with quiet courage in his. Something invisible connected them in that moment, something gentle yet powerful. Slowly, Rashid's hand moved from Kareem's cheek to the back of his neck. He guided him forward only if Kareem allowed. Kareem leaned in, breath trembling, heart racing, not from desire but from emotion so pure it frightened him. Their foreheads touched first. Then, with a tenderness that belonged to moments carved out of time itself, Rashid pressed his lips softly to Kareem's. A kiss. Warm. Slow. Meaningful. A kiss not of passion but of newfound belonging. Kareem felt warmth flood his chest, gentle, overwhelming, real. Rashid's fingers caressed his neck softly, while Kareem's hand rested lightly on the Sheikh's shoulder. When they finally parted, Rashid inhaled shakily. Forgive me, he whispered. My heart reached for yours. Kareem whispered back, I reached too. Rashid smiled, soft, deeply touched. Then this changes everything. And it had. For in that small room under the vast desert night, two souls, one seasoned by life, the other blossoming into it, found each other in a moment fragile as glass, yet strong enough to alter the path of both their lives. Everything had changed indeed. Night settled fully over the oasis, soft and deep, like a silk curtain drawn across the world. The lantern's golden glow flickered delicately, casting shapes on the walls, shapes that swayed like quiet spirits. Outside, the palms whispered as they swayed in the cool breeze. Inside, in that simple, warm room, two men shared a silence that was far from empty. Kareem sat close to the Sheikh on the bed, closer than earlier, close enough to feel the warmth of Rashid's presence beside him. It wasn't nervousness that filled him now, it was a strange, steadying calm. A sense that he was exactly where he was meant to be. Rashid rested his head against the wall, exhaling slowly. Though age had touched him, he looked at peace in a way Kareem doubted many had ever seen. His face softened in the lantern light. The lines on his forehead eased. His eyes, half-lidded, glimmered with an unreadable tenderness. For years, Rashid said quietly, I have spoken only words required of me. Commands, decisions, advice, agreements. He paused, his voice gentle but heavy. But tonight I feel free to speak as a man, not a leader. Kareem listened intently, drawn in by the vulnerability threading through Rashid's tone. You may speak anything you wish, Kareem said softly. Nothing here will be taken from you. Nothing judged. Rashid looked at him with grateful eyes, eyes that for the first time seemed to unburden themselves. I thank you for that, he murmured. He turned slightly, bringing himself face to face with Kareem. His expression grew more intimate, the distance between them small enough for Kareem to feel Rashid's breath brush lightly against his own skin. I have lived long enough to know many forms of loneliness, Rashid continued. The loneliness of leadership, the loneliness of age, the loneliness of being listened to but not heard. His gaze deepened. But tonight, I felt something lift from me. When I turned toward you earlier, something shifted here. His hand lifted, resting gently over his heart. Kareem swallowed quietly. I felt it too. Rashid's eyebrows lifted with a soft, surprised warmth. You did? Yes, Kareem whispered. When you kissed my hand, when you touched my cheek. I felt something I cannot explain. Something I haven't felt in years. Rashid's lips curved into a small, heartfelt smile. He reached out slowly, brushing his fingers through a strand of Kareem's hair that had fallen forward. You are far too young to carry such loneliness, the Sheikh murmured. Your eyes should not hold such quiet longing. Kareem lowered his gaze. Life is quiet here. Sometimes too quiet. And after my father passed, the silence grew even heavier. Rashid gently curved his finger beneath Kareem's chin, lifting it so their eyes met again. You deserve warmth, Rashid murmured. Not only solitude. Kareem's voice trembled slightly. Warmth found me tonight. Rashid's breath caught just a little, an unmistakable sign that the young man's words struck something deep within him. The older man shifted, easing himself closer. Their knees brushed. Kareem's skin tingled at the contact. Rashid's hand came to rest on Kareem's, and Kareem turned his palm upward instinctively, intertwining their fingers. The gesture was simple, yet it felt powerful, an unspoken vow of trust. Kareem, Rashid began, his voice low, may I tell you something I have told no one in years? Anything, Kareem whispered. Rashid drew in a slow breath. I fear that the older I grow, the more invisible I become. People see the Sheikh, the ruler, the symbol. But they do not see the man. The human beneath the robe and the responsibility. Kareem's grip tightened gently around Rashid's hand. I see the man, he said softly. I saw him from the moment you stepped into my home. Rashid let out a breath that trembled just slightly. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against Kareem's, slow, tentative, intimate. Kareem's eyes closed at the gentle touch, his breath merging with Rashid's in the small space between them. Your words heal places in me I did not know were wounded, Rashid whispered. Kareem's heart swelled. He lifted a hand and brushed the pad of his thumb across Rashid's cheek gently. The older man leaned into the touch, eyes fluttering closed for a brief, vulnerable moment. Then let me say more, Kareem murmured. You are not invisible. Not forgotten. Not fading. You carry a strength that does not dim with age. And your presence, Kareem's voice softened even further. Your presence feels safe. Rashid opened his eyes slowly, gaze locked on Kareem's with a tenderness deep enough to anchor storms. You speak with such gentleness, he said. And you do not even realize how deeply your words reach me. Kareem didn't answer, not with words. Instead, he leaned forward slightly, giving Rashid a chance to pull away if he wished. He didn't. Their lips met again, softly, like a quiet confession shared between two hearts that had long been waiting to be heard. Rashid's hand slid behind Kareem's neck, drawing him closer but keeping the kiss slow, respectful, full of emotion rather than urgency. Kareem responded with equal tenderness, his hands resting lightly on Rashid's shoulders. The kiss lingered, not to claim but to understand. When they separated, Rashid rested his forehead against Kareem's once more. You kiss like someone who has loved deeply, Rashid murmured. And you kiss like someone who has waited to love again, Kareem replied. The Sheikh smiled, a small, emotional smile that spoke of both gratitude and longing. Perhaps, Rashid whispered, tonight is the first time I have allowed myself to feel anything so freely in many years. And I am honored to be the one beside you, Kareem said. Rashid's thumb brushed Kareem's lower lip gently as if memorizing it. You are a wonder, young one. And you, Kareem whispered back, are a comfort. The room grew quieter still, not with emptiness but with a fullness of emotion neither dared break. They remained close, foreheads touching, breaths mingling, fingers intertwined, for what felt like hours. And in that quiet night, filled with small confessions and tender truths, something important settled between them. Not a promise, not a demand, but an understanding. A bond that had begun with a single turn of a tired man's body, and had grown into something neither could ignore. Morning arrived softly, as if afraid to disturb the peace that had settled inside the small stone home. The first light of dawn crept through the narrow window, brushing the room in pale gold. Outside, the oasis stirred, the slow rustle of palm leaves, the distant coo of birds waking, the whisper of breeze sliding over water. But inside the world was still. Kareem awoke first. For a long moment he lay still, unsure if he was dreaming. But then he felt it, the gentle weight of a warm hand resting near his own, the slow and steady sound of another's breathing. Kareem turned his head slightly and found Sheikh Rashid lying beside him, not pressed close, but near enough that Kareem felt the presence of another heart sharing the quiet morning. Rashid looked different in sleep, peaceful, unguarded, softened by the fragile vulnerability only rest could reveal. The stern lines around his eyes were eased, his mouth relaxed, his posture less burdened. Kareem watched him quietly, his own heart stirring with something gentle and protective. For a moment Kareem thought he should rise, step away, give the Sheikh space, but he didn't move. Something about the scene felt too precious to break. In the soft light, Rashid seemed less like the grand, respected leader of Kafila City and more like a man who had finally found a moment of safety. A single strand of silver hair rested across Rashid's forehead. Without thinking too long, Kareem lifted his hand and brushed it aside as lightly as a breeze might. Rashid stirred at the touch, his lashes fluttering open. Kareem froze. But Rashid only blinked slowly, adjusting to the morning light. When his gaze found Kareem's, it softened instantly. "Good morning, young one," he said, his voice roughened by sleep but warm. Kareem felt heat rise in his cheeks. "Good morning, Rashid." A faint smile touched the Sheikh's lips at the use of his name, soft, intimate, spoken like a secret. "I haven't been greeted like that in many years," Rashid murmured. Kareem shifted slightly. "Does it bother you?" Rashid shook his head. "No. It pleases me more than I imagined." Their hands lay close, barely touching. Rashid moved his fingers just enough to brush Kareem's lightly. Kareem let his own hand shift closer in return, their fingertips meeting like a whispered promise. "How did you sleep?" Kareem asked softly. "Deeply," Rashid replied. "More deeply than I have in seasons. And when I woke, I saw you." That alone was a comfort. Kareem's heart fluttered. "I'm glad you rested." The Sheikh pushed himself up slowly, his joints stiff but his movements calm. Kareem helped him without hesitation, one hand on his arm, the other steady at Rashid's back. Rashid allowed it, leaning into the support more than he would have let any servant or guard see. "I forget sometimes that I am no longer the young man I was," Rashid said, grunting softly as he rose to sit against the wall. "You are still strong," Kareem replied gently. "Strength does not vanish with gray hair." Rashid chuckled, a warm sound. "You speak like someone twice your age." Kareem smiled shyly. "And you speak like someone who knows the truth behind words." The older man reached out and took Kareem's hand once more, bringing it to his lips just as he had the night before. But this time the kiss lingered longer, morning soft, grateful, steady. Kareem inhaled quietly, feeling warmth spread through him. "I hope," Rashid murmured, lowering their hands but not releasing Kareem's, "that last night was not a passing moment born of fatigue." Kareem shook his head slowly. "It was real," he whispered. "Every part of it was real to me." "Good," Rashid breathed, relief softening his shoulders. "Because I would not wish to leave this place carrying a memory that only belonged to me." Kareem felt something sweet and painful twist in his chest. He sat beside Rashid again, their knees touching lightly. "May I prepare breakfast for us?" Kareem offered. Rashid leaned his head back against the wall, watching him with warm eyes. "Only if you stay close while doing it." Kareem laughed softly. "I can do that." He rose and moved to the small stone hearth, Rashid's gaze following him like sunlight tracing a shadow. The young man warmed milk in a clay pot, crushed cardamom seeds with a small mortar, and stirred in honey until the air filled with a sweet aroma. He sliced dates, toasted bread lightly over the embers, and arranged everything on a simple wooden tray. Rashid watched each movement with a softness Kareem didn't expect from a man of his stature. "Your hands move with care," the Sheikh said. Kareem set the tray down between them. "I like caring for things." Rashid touched his hand again, gently, warmly. "And you care for people with the same tenderness." Kareem felt a quiet shiver run through him. They ate slowly, Rashid savoring each flavor with appreciative murmurs. Kareem tried to focus on his own food but found his eyes drifting repeatedly toward the older man, toward the way he smiled when something tasted sweet, the ease that had replaced the sternness of yesterday. After a while, Rashid placed his cup aside and looked out the window. "It has been so long," he said softly, "since I shared a morning like this. A morning without duties, without voices asking for answers, without masks I must wear." He looked back at Kareem with a tenderness that made the young man's breath catch. "To sit beside someone," Rashid continued, "and feel seen." Kareem's voice came out barely above a whisper. "You deserve that. Everyone deserves that." Rashid cupped Kareem's cheek gently, thumb brushing the skin beneath his eye. Kareem leaned into the touch, closing his eyes. Your presence, the Sheikh said softly, makes the years feel lighter. Kareem opened his eyes again, meeting Rashid's with quiet courage. And yours makes the silence feel warm. A small moment passed, soft, delicate, held in the air like a fragile blossom. Rashid leaned forward, pressing a slow kiss to Kareem's forehead. Kareem breathed in the scent of oud and sun-worn cloth, feeling his heart swell with a tenderness he had never known. This morning, Rashid whispered, I find myself wishing the world would wait for us. Kareem nodded. I wish that too. They stayed like that, foreheads touching, breaths mingling, until the sun climbed higher, painting the walls in amber. And in that golden quiet, in the heart of a small desert home, two souls discovered that morning could be as intimate as night. A morning that felt like a promise. A morning that neither of them would ever forget. The sun drifted toward noon, casting liquid gold across the oasis. The palms outside shimmered in the warm light, their shadows dancing lightly on the sandy ground. Inside Kareem's modest home, the quiet of morning lingered, but now it was a quiet shaped by presence, by glances that lasted a little too long, by the soft awareness of shared breath. Rashid sat on one of the woven cushions near the window, a cup of warm tea steaming gently between his hands. Kareem knelt beside the small wooden chest where he kept his books, arranging them more out of nervous habit than necessity. He felt Rashid's gaze on him, warm, contemplative, almost studying him. Kareem, Rashid said softly. Kareem paused, spine straightening slightly. Yes. Come sit with me. I wish to speak with you. The young man set the last book aside and rose, crossing the room with a quiet grace. He sat beside Rashid, close enough that their knees brushed lightly. The contact sent a small flutter through Kareem's chest, but he did not move away. Rashid didn't either. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence was not awkward but filled with unspoken things both men felt pressing behind their ribs. Rashid looked down at his cup, swirling the tea gently. I have been thinking, he began, voice low, almost hesitant. About last night. About this morning. Kareem swallowed gently. So have I. The Sheikh's eyes lifted slowly, meeting his. In that gaze was vulnerability that Kareem had never seen from a man of such status. You are young, Rashid said quietly. Young enough that I fear I bring you complications you don't deserve. Kareem frowned softly. Complications. Yes. Rashid paused. My age. My responsibilities. The expectations placed upon me. Men like me, we are not free, Kareem. Not really. Kareem looked at him with steady softness. And yet you are here. In my home. Sitting beside me. Speaking to me like a man, not a sheik. Rashid's breath hitched, not dramatically but in a subtle, emotional way. Kareem felt more than heard. It is rare, Rashid murmured, to be seen as just a man. He set his cup aside, hands trembling slightly from emotion, not age. And even rarer still, to be wanted as one. Kareem's heart thudded. He reached out, placing his hand gently over Rashid's. Their fingers intertwined naturally as if drawn by a quiet force. I don't see you as a sheik when you look at me like this, Kareem whispered. I see the man who spoke softly in the lantern light. The man whose heart grew lighter in my home. The man who kissed me because he felt something he couldn't ignore. Rashid closed his eyes briefly at Kareem's words, as though savoring them like rare sweetness. Kareem, he murmured, you speak truth with a tenderness my heart has not felt in many years. Kareem's thumb brushed the back of Rashid's hand, slow and comforting. Then let your heart feel it. The older man opened his eyes again, and what Kareem saw there made his breath tremble. A mixture of longing, gratitude, and a deep affection that had grown quietly between them. There is something I must confess, Rashid said. Last night when you fell asleep beside me, I watched you for a long time. Kareem blushed faintly. You did. Yes. Rashid's voice softened even more. Your face, it was peaceful. Untouched by all the things that weigh on the world. I felt something stir inside me that I had not allowed myself to feel in many years. Kareem's heart fluttered. What did you feel? Rashid hesitated, his thumb brushing against Kareem's palm. Hope, he whispered. Hope that life still held gentleness for me. That my age had not locked me out of companionship. That someone might look at me, and not see a weary ruler, but a man with warmth still left to give. Kareem felt his eyes burn slightly, not with sadness but with deep emotion. I see all of that, he said. I feel all of that from you. Rashid exhaled shakily, turning his hand to hold Kareem's fully. Then allow me another confession. He shifted closer, their shoulders now touching. When I first entered your home, I felt something settle inside me. A quiet I have never known in palaces. A comfort I had forgotten existed. Kareem leaned his head slightly toward Rashid. Your presence did the same for me. Rashid smiled, a small, vulnerable, deeply heartfelt smile. I thought myself too old to feel this way. But you, he brushed a hand down Kareem's cheek, slow and reverent. You awakened something gentle in me. Kareem closed his eyes for a moment, leaning into the touch. I didn't expect you to feel anything for me at all. And yet, Rashid whispered, I do. Their foreheads touched naturally, breath mingling in the warm space between them. You must think me foolish, Rashid murmured. I don't, Kareem said. I think you're honest. Rashid chuckled softly, a sound filled with affection. Your honesty emboldens me, Kareem. It makes me feel, his thumb caressed Kareem's cheek again, daring. Kareem opened his eyes, their gazes locked. Then dare, he whispered. Rashid's breath caught. He cupped Kareem's face with both hands, his touch gentle but certain, and leaned in. Their lips met in a kiss that was deeper than the night before, not urgent but fuller, richer. A kiss that carried confession rather than curiosity. Rashid's hands held Kareem's face as though he were something precious. Kareem's fingers curled into Rashid's robes, grounding him gently. The kiss deepened for a long, slow moment, their breaths blending, their hearts tightening with an emotion neither could hide anymore. When they finally parted, Rashid rested his forehead against Kareem's again. I am too far gone, Rashid whispered. I think I care for you more than I should. Kareem's voice trembled softly. And I care for you more than I expected. Their breaths mingled, their hands intertwined, their hearts laying bare what words could no longer protect. The whispers were no longer whispers. They had become truth. Afternoon light stretched lazily across the oasis, settling over the palms and shimmering off the water like molten gold. The desert wind had calmed, leaving behind a quiet so still that even the smallest sounds, Rashid's breathing, Kareem's soft footsteps, felt magnified in the little stone house. Kareem stood at the doorway watching the caravan outside. The guards had begun to move again, checking saddles, organizing packs, whispering among themselves. They worked carefully, respectfully, always maintaining distance to give their Sheikh privacy. They knew better than to question his wishes, though Kareem sensed that they were beginning to wonder how long the Sheikh intended to stay in such a humble place. Inside, Rashid watched Kareem from where he sat on a cushion. The older man's gaze carried a mixture of warmth and sadness, as though he was holding two truths that could not exist without the other. You're thinking about leaving, Kareem said softly, turning back toward him. Rashid's expression softened, though sorrow lingered behind his eyes. A leader is never free from the pull of his responsibilities, he admitted. My people need me. My council expects me. The world outside this oasis continues to move. Kareem lowered his gaze. I understand. Rashid studied him for a moment longer, then slowly rose, using his staff for balance. His joints protested softly, but he pushed through with a practiced grace of a man who had spent a lifetime commanding his body and his fate. Kareem, he said gently, come to me. Kareem approached without hesitation. Rashid took both his hands in his own, the older man's palms warm and steady. I must return to my city, Rashid continued quietly, but I do not wish to leave you behind in this small home, lost to the sands of solitude. Kareem's throat tightened. This is my life. My father's house. My quiet place. Yes, Rashid said, and it is beautiful. But a life can be beautiful and still lonely. Kareem looked up at him then truly looked. And you don't want to be lonely either. Rashid's eyes warmed. Not anymore. The confession felt like a stone dropped into a still pond, gentle, but with ripples that reached every corner of the room. Rashid lifted Kareem's hands to his chest, resting them over his heart. Kareem could feel the steady thrum beneath his palms. I do not offer you a palace of gold or a life of luxury, Rashid said softly. But I offer you a place at my side. A place beside someone who has discovered hope again, because of you. Kareem's breath caught. You would want me with you? In the city? I would want you near me, Rashid corrected. In the quiet corners of my life where no one sees the Sheikh, only the man. Kareem's voice trembled. What would people say? Rashid sighed, rubbing his thumb gently across Kareem's knuckles. People will always speak. But those who know me, those who truly understand me, will see only that their Sheikh has found solace at last. Kareem's heart warmed at the words. And what about you? Rashid asked softly. What does your heart say? Kareem stepped closer, close enough that the fabric of Rashid's robe brushed against him. My heart says I want to stay by your side. Not because you are a sheikh, but because you are you. Rashid exhaled shakily, the sound of a man receiving something he didn't believe he deserved. Gently, tenderly he cupped Kareem's face with both hands. His thumbs brushed along the young man's cheeks, memorizing their softness. Then come with me, Rashid whispered. Come to Kafila City. Walk beside me through the palace gardens. Sit with me in the quiet evenings. Share mornings where I wake and find your face first. Kareem felt tears prick his eyes, soft, overwhelmed emotion. Not sadness. Something brighter. I would go anywhere with you, Kareem said. Rashid leaned forward, pressing a slow kiss to Kareem's forehead. The touch was reverent, warm, filled with promise. And I will protect your heart with the strength of all my years, Rashid murmured. Kareem's eyes closed, savoring the moment. When Rashid pulled back, he took Kareem's hands again and gave them a tender squeeze. Pack your things, he said gently. Only what you need. You will have your own room in the palace, your own space, your own window, your own quiet. And my door will always be open to you. Kareem nodded, throat too tight for words. Rashid watched him with a quiet smile as he gathered a small bag, clothes, his father's old scarf, a few books, the wooden pendant he wore for luck. He moved slowly, each item a piece of the life he was leaving behind and carrying forward at the same time. When Kareem finished, he turned back toward Rashid. Are you ready? Kareem asked. Rashid stepped forward, brushing a hand along Kareem's cheek again. I am ready, the older man said, because you will be with me. Outside, the guards stood when they saw the sheikh emerge with Kareem by his side. They exchanged quick glances but said nothing. They bowed in respect and Rashid returned the gesture with quiet authority. The caravan prepared to move. Before stepping into the palanquin, Rashid looked at Kareem once more. Come, he said softly, extending a hand. Sit with me. Kareem slipped his fingers into the sheikh's palm and climbed inside. The silken curtains closed behind them, cocooning the two men in a soft, private space. Rashid wrapped an arm around Kareem's shoulders. Kareem leaned into him, resting his head against the older man's chest. Are you afraid? Rashid asked softly. A little, Kareem admitted. But I trust you. Rashid pressed a gentle kiss to Kareem's temple. Then fear nothing. We will face whatever comes together. The caravan began to move. The desert stretched out before them, vast, golden, endless. But for the first time in years, Rashid did not feel the journey's weight. And for the first time in months, Kareem did not feel alone in the world. They had chosen a future. Not defined by age. Not defined by titles. But by the steady, growing warmth between them. A future they would walk into hand in hand. Night descended upon the desert as though it had been waiting for the caravan to begin its journey. The moon rose high, round, white and glowing softly, casting silver light across the dunes. The palanquin swayed gently with the movement of the camels, its silk curtains fluttering like quiet breaths. Inside, Kareem lay resting against Rashid's side, wrapped in the older man's cloak. The fabric smelled faintly of oud, desert wind, and something deeply comforting, something that felt like home. Rashid held him close, his arm firm and protective around Kareem's shoulders. The world outside was vast and unending, but inside the palanquin, it felt as if only the two of them existed. Are you warm enough? Rashid asked softly, brushing a hand down Kareem's arm. Yes, Kareem murmured. Warmer than I have felt in a long time. Rashid smiled. Good. That is all I want. Kareem tilted his head slightly, resting his cheek against the sheikh's chest. He could hear the steady rhythm of Rashid's heartbeat, slow, strong, sure. A sound that soothed him more than any lullaby from childhood. For a while they remained in silence. Not the silence of distance, but the silence of closeness, where breath and presence replaced the need for words. The palanquin creaked softly, the desert wind whispered through the curtains, and the guard's footsteps crunched lightly on the sand outside. Eventually Kareem spoke. Rashid, he said quietly, do you think life will really be different for us in the city? Rashid looked down at him, thumb brushing Kareem's shoulder. Life is always different when hearts choose one another. But the palace, the people, your responsibilities. All of that will remain, Rashid said gently. But so will you. And that alone changes the shape of every day. Kareem breathed out softly, comforted but shy. I don't want to be a burden to you. Rashid's gaze softened with a depth Kareem felt all the way to his bones. Kareem, you are not a burden. You are a blessing I never expected. Kareem's heart fluttered. Rashid continued. You have already given me something priceless. What? Peace, Rashid whispered. A peace I thought I had lost forever. Kareem looked up at him, eyes shining in the soft moonlight. Rashid reached up and brushed a thumb along Kareem's cheek. You make me feel seen, the Sheikh said. Not as a ruler. Not as an old man. But as myself. Kareem felt emotion swell gently in his chest. He sat up a little so he could face Rashid fully. And you, Kareem said softly, make me feel safe. You make me feel wanted. Rashid cupped Kareem's face with both hands, fingers warm against his skin. You are wanted, he whispered. More than you know. Kareem closed his eyes briefly, leaning into the touch. When he opened them again, Rashid was still looking at him with a tenderness that made Kareem's breath tremble. May I? The Sheikh asked softly. Kareem nodded. Yes. Their lips met again, slow, deep, full of emotion. Not urgent. Not demanding. Just true. Rashid's hands held Kareem's face with gentle reverence, as if afraid the moment might slip away if he wasn't careful. Kareem kissed him back with equal softness, fingers curling lightly into Rashid's robes. When they parted, their foreheads rested together, breathing mingled. That kiss, Rashid murmured, felt like a beginning. Kareem smiled. It was. The palanquin rocked gently as the caravan climbed a small hill. When they reached the top, the curtains fluttered open with the wind, revealing the vast desert beneath the moonlight. The dunes stretched endlessly, glowing silver under the sky. Rashid lifted the curtain slightly with one hand, letting the cool breeze drift inside. Look, he said softly. Kareem leaned close, watching the horizon with him. It's beautiful, Kareem whispered. It is, Rashid agreed. But not as beautiful as the life waiting ahead. Kareem blushed, heart warming. Rashid lowered the curtain and turned back to Kareem. In the city you will have your own room. Your own space. You will never feel trapped or hidden. Kareem nodded gratefully. And I, Rashid continued, voice quiet and sincere, will finally have someone to share the parts of my life most people never see. The quiet parts. The vulnerable parts. Kareem placed his hand gently on Rashid's chest. I want to share those with you. The older man placed his hand over Kareem's, holding it there. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as though they had always been meant to find each other. The caravan continued its slow journey toward Kafila city, but inside the palanquin time felt suspended, held tenderly between what was and what would be. Kareem, Rashid said after a long silence, I want you to know something. What is it? Kareem asked gently. That first night, Rashid whispered, when I turned over and saw you sitting there, I felt something break open inside me. A door I had closed long ago. Kareem blinked softly. What did you feel? Life, Rashid said simply. A reminder that my story was not finished. That my heart still had room for warmth. Kareem felt a tear slip down his cheek. Rashid brushed it away with a tender thumb. And now, Rashid continued, his voice deep and steady, because of you I walk toward my future with hope. Kareem leaned forward, pressing a soft kiss to Rashid's cheek. And I walk toward mine with you. Rashid wrapped his arms around Kareem and held him close. Kareem rested his head against the Sheikh's shoulder, listening to the steady heartbeat that had become a quiet comfort. Outside the desert wind sang. The stars glimmered. The caravan moved steadily across the moonlit sands toward the city where their new life awaited. And inside, wrapped in warmth and tenderness, two souls sat joined in a bond that had begun with a single moment. A moment when a tired old sheikh had turned over to face a young man in a quiet house at the edge of an oasis, and discovered a love he never expected. A love that would guide them both into a future full of gentle mornings, peaceful nights, shared whispers and soft, meaningful kisses. A love that began with one simple world-changing turn.